Okay, here's another progress report. Today I've been working on putting in insulation. Thought I'd start outside and point out that box up above the porch roof. And that's a box that's covering the air conditioner, which also has lots of room around it for airflow. And I'll show you what it looks like on the inside. Yesterday David Reeves put in the air conditioner up there, cut a hole in the wall, framed it, and anchored it in. Okay, so now I'm, I don't know, maybe a third of the way through getting insulation in. I'm using the rigid foam insulation, which involves a whole new learning curve for me, learning how to cut it, and of course measuring, fitting it in, and I've got it going here and there throughout. Right now I'm just focusing on the walls, and I do have quite a bit in. It's been a real interesting process to learn how to cut it. I'm really grateful that Stefan told me about a hot knife, which is basically this metal implement that is electrically heated, and it cuts the foam, or it actually melts the foam, creates a horrible smell. So I use this air respirator breathing apparatus because I'm imagining that's pretty toxic. And one of the challenging things, of course, is fitting the styrofoam or the rigid foam insulation around the outlet boxes for the electricity. Actually, that's not as hard as fitting it in around the wires, because my electrician did not put the wiring in far enough. I didn't tell him, he didn't ask. And my rigid foam insulation is 2 inches deep, and I actually moved this one over. So that's great, but in some other places I don't think I can move it over. But I'm working around that by sculpting the back side of the rigid foam so that I can accommodate the wiring and the bolts at the bottom. So I've actually kind of enjoyed learning how to sculpt, which really means melting the back side of the foam right where the bolt needs to go, so that I can get the foam flush up against the 2x4. And I'm going to have to buy some of that spray foam stuff to fill in some of the gaps I didn't quite get the cut just right. Or in this case, there was some wiring coming down behind there. Anyway, it's kind of like a big puzzle. And just taking it easy. I'm lucky that the weather's been so nice. Allows me to do the cutting outside. And one of the great things about not having to cut with a saw is that I don't create tons and tons of this little tiny foam fiber, which is like dust and particles. I got a little bit here, but also I'm grateful that I was able to borrow a shop vac for cleaning up all the tiny stuff. And then for the ceiling, I'm not sure yet. I got to talk to a carpenter about my ceiling part, and haven't quite figured out what I want to do. Of course I'm going to insulate, but I'm not sure if I want to do the rigid foam insulation up there. And I'm going to consult with another carpenter and see if he wants to do the job of insulating and putting the ceiling in. So hopefully that'll happen next week. And I'll just continue plugging away at putting this rigid foam insulation in.